Come out with us and play. Love your London. Have a banana.
Welcome to part 3 of our 7-part journey around the London borough of Barking and Dagenham. Today on Love Your London, we will take a walk down the River Roding, tell you about its history and its future, making the odd detour along the way, until we reach its confluence with the River Thames, where the Barking Creek barrier stops tragedies from happening, such as when the village of Creekmouth got completely wiped out in 1953. And that's not the only tragedy that's happened here. It's also the site of the greatest loss of life of any inland shipping disaster. We also check out the brand new Barking Riverside station and wonder how different the area will soon look when it becomes what is being dubbed as Barcelona-on-Thames. But we start off checking out an area that has great significance for the Quaker community. Oh, and the Sikhs as well. Hello, welcome to episode 3 on Barking and Dagenham. We're still in Barking. And today is all about the River Roding. We're going to be taking you down the River Roding, well, from the Barking part of the River Roding down to the mouth, to Creekmouth, the Barking Creek, and then we're going to make our way over to, it's very exciting, to a new area dubbed the Barcelona-on-Thames. It's been dubbed by the media that way. Quite a grand title. I wonder if we're going to be seeing any Sagrada Familias or Park Wells. I think not. That's going to be later on. But first of all, because otherwise, if we don't do this now, I know this has nothing to do with the River Roding, but if we don't do this now, we'll miss it because we're not going to be in this area again. We have here a Gurdwara. You can see the Kirtan over there. The Gurdwara Singh Sabha London East. You can see the website there on your screen. This is for the Sikh community, and this is open 24 hours a day. And like all Gurdwara, it has a langar, which is a free kitchen. We won't actually go in there because we did quite a lot about Sikhism in our episodes on Tooting Beck. There would be a link down in the description if you want to see it later on, not now. And that's where we actually visited. We actually spoke to someone inside there. It's very interesting. It tells you all about the history of Sikhism, what the 5 Ks are, which are the codes that all Sikhs have to live by. Another religion that's very important is, of course, the Quaker religion. Like in the last episode, we went to see the Barking Abbey, which of course was Catholic, destroyed by King Henry VIII. We also spoke to the lovely vicar of St Margaret's Church, Mark Adams. What a wonderful chap. So do check out that episode if you haven't done so already. But now it's all about Quakers, and there's one very famous Quaker who's buried here. We saw a statue to her inside the church. Her name is Elizabeth Fry. Now, Elizabeth Fry was a prison reformer. She was instrumental in making sure that women's rights were looked after in the prisons. You may remember, I mean, if you don't know anything about Elizabeth Fry, I'm sure at least you know that she appeared on the very last of the paper £5 notes that we had. Now, of course, we've got these horrible plasticky ones. She was the one who suggested that male and female prisoners should not be imprisoned together. Can you believe it? Before her suggestions, they were imprisoned together. Absolutely ripe for assaults and everything. That was number one, and that got through. The other thing that she was trying to push for was that only female warders should look after female prisoners. That unfortunately was less successful, even though she was a very close friend of Queen Victoria. Thanks to her that we got the 1823 Jails Act. But unfortunately, and even still to this day, male prison warders still are working in close proximity to female prisoners. So yeah, well, but anyway, she tried. She was a great trier. Female prisoners who are leaving Newgate prison and on their way to Australia to be deported would go through the City of London in open coaches, and the City of London workers would take great delight in throwing rotten fruit at them as they go past. So humiliating, so unnecessary. She was instrumental in making sure that journey, that final journey from Newgate Prison to the ships, was in a closed carriage so as not to make their journey even more unbearable. So she did fantastic things. Yes, I was actually looking for her headstone. There is a little explanation part thing there which you can now see on your screen. You see Sharon's just giving it a quick wipe so you can read it properly. She actually died in Ramsgate, but she was buried here. But apparently, I mean, the reason why there were no headstones in this Quaker Burial Ground is apparently Quakers disapproved of headstones because they made a distinction between the rich who could afford a memorial and the poor who could not. She did actually have a headstone, but it was moved to the Friends Burial Ground in Wanstead. So there you go, not an awful lot to look at here. Let's move on to the river Roding and let's see some water. Fantastic river. Can't wait to show you. It's a lovely river. Oh, and if you want to learn more about Elizabeth Fry, this biography, called While It Is Yet Day by Avril Douglas Opperham, can be purchased for just £10.98 with our link that's in the description. There you go. That's just one way that you can help us financially. We don't get very much, only a few pennies. There are other ways, of course. You can be our patron on Patreon. That really helps. We've got some wonderful patrons already. But of course, there are ways that you can help us for free. One of them is by sharing these videos on your social media, by liking this video. I'm just going to wait a second so you hit that like button. Yay! Thank you, you star. And also you can subscribe. That's really important. Subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. Like us, you know what to do. Anyway, just behind me we can see a bus at the moment, but you can see a pub called the Jolly Fisherman. That gives you a good indication of, obviously, not very jolly at the moment because this river is no longer really a fishing river, but it's an awful lot better than it was. The Barking fishing fleet was the biggest in the whole of London. Now, obviously, it is no more. We're going to tell you a little bit more about the fishing industry later. You'll see later on. You'll see that there is a community called the Moorings, a community of people who live on houseboats, and that's been there for about 20 odd years. But in 2017, one intrepid boat owner, a barrister called Paul Polesland, a barrister at Garden Court Chambers, and he's also a climate activist who founded Lawyers for Nature. He was kind of sick of all the regulation involved around mooring canal boats, and he wondered, what if we go a little bit further up the River Roding to see if there is somewhere, an unrated area, where maybe he could start a new community of people and who would actually be looking after the area, cleaning the river, turning it into, getting the flora and the fauna back to the area. So and he was the first person in a long time to try this. They hadn't seen a boat go up there in ages. He took the boat further up the river. Of course, you can only do that when the tide is very high. He took it further up the river, found a place to start a new community. He went there first, and others followed him. A couple of people, I think, from the old moorings. And now there's a little vibrant community down there, all self-sufficient. They're all off-grid. None of them using any, there's just no hot water or anything. They use fires to boil their water. I think Paul himself has solar panels on the roof of his barge. There's even a little community kitchen there called Gaia, which is like a community area and a kitchen area. And what they do is they clean the river. The Roding River Trust, I believe they're sort of like up there somewhere. I'm not going to bother them now. If we happen to bump into Paul, I should be able to recognise him, because it's a fantastic, I don't know, we're talking about psychogeography in our first episode of this series, when we saw that book by Ian Sinclair. Another great psychogeographer is John Rogers, and his YouTube channel I really do recommend. He actually has a little walk down the River Roding. I know we're sort of like kind of copying him, but not really, because we'd penciled this in long time ago. We're going to try and avoid all the same things that he talks about. Sometimes it's going to be impossible, but one of the things he does is he has a little chat with Paul, and he walks down the River Roding, but he talks with Paul about all the fantastic cleaning work that they do. Yeah, so the people who live in the moorings pay voluntary contributions towards a fund. And with that fund, which comes to about £5,000 a year,
They clean the waterways, they plant hundreds of new trees, they rewild the place and throw tons of rubbish away that they collect. And the great thing is that it is being recognised by the people of Barking, because in 2020 they picked up a community award. It was the Faith and Community Awards, and it won the Barking and Dagenham Environmental Sustainability Award. So they've been getting quite a lot of great press. Fantastic, good on Paul. Just going to sit down here a bit just to tell you a little bit about the River Roding. River Roding actually used to be called the River Isle, H-Y-L-E, Hyle, I guess it was pronounced, and that's where Ilford gets its name. Ilford was the ford on the River Hyle or Isle. Somehow it became Ilford. That's where Ilford's just up there, about a mile and a half upriver. Ilford got its name from the River Hyle, then it became the River Roding, and this is, or rather, the River Roding is called the River Roding right up until it gets towards the mouth, which is when it starts being called Barking Creek. One of the things I haven't actually told you about yet, and I can't believe we're in episode 3 on barking and I haven't done this yet, is where the word barking comes from. Nothing to do with dogs, I'm really sorry, even though there is a pub called the Spotted Dog near Barking Station, as you can see on your screen here, but the name Barking actually is quite old. It predates all of the name Bark, as far as I know. It probably comes from the word for birch tree. Yeah, so the community or manor that was built around it was known as Beresingham, and that meant the people who live among the birch trees, and is mentioned by that name in a charter in 735 AD. The manor actually covered pretty much the current borough of Barking and Dagenham as we know it now, plus Ilford as well, in the 1066 Domesday Book. Now, in the 1066 Domesday Book, the area became Birchinguy. So Barking sadly has got nothing to do with dogs, but has something to do with birch trees. Now, I should actually add that there is a theory that there may have been a chap here in Anglo-Saxon times called Beresingas, and that the town was originally named after him. However, even if it was, the birch connotation is one that has been recognised as the origin really since the 8th century. So there you go. That's a very interesting thing there, isn't it? It's an educational channel.
It is indeed.
It is indeed an educational channel. You've just learned all about why this is called barking. Birch trees, or a guy called Beresingas, but birch trees. Birch. As you can see, as I was saying before, this is a tidal river. If you look at the marks there on the side of the walls, you see how dark it is, about a metre above the surface. This is going to rise another metre, so it's quite extraordinary, because we're quite a lot inland. This is still a tidal river, so it's salty water for when the tide is coming in, and that's why. Now, further up there, we're going to talk about it probably a lot more when we do our Ilford episodes, because there's some there as well. When you get the very high spring tides, it overflows. Obviously, there's been a history of flooding in this area. There was an absolutely terrible flood here in 1953, where the whole of Barking was got lots and lots of water, and a little village of Creekmouth was completely wiped out. So it was absolutely awful. We'll talk about that when we get to Creekmouth. But yeah, so it was really that why there's been a flood defence barrier that's put up at the end of this river. But as you can see, the river comes up quite a lot, about another 2 metres maybe. And right up there are salt marshes, salt flats, or salt marshes, and in fact it used to be called the Saltings on old maps. I'm not sure what the salt tasted like, but there you go. But salt marshes are fantastic for migrating birds. There's also a nature reserve further down there, but that's in Beckton territory, so I'm going to wait until we get to Beckton before we talk about that. Basically, when we go further down, everything on the west side, as in the right bank of the River Roding, is in the borough of Tower Hamlets. It's part of Beckton. Everything on the east side, as in the left bank, is part of Barking and Dagenham. So I want to be quite sort of strict to the boundaries of Barking and Dagenham. So when we go further down there, we'll be swapping over to the eastern side, to the left side of the river,
But first of all, just a little list. Isn't this a lovely bridge? This is Grade 2 listed, 1904. Just after Victoria.
Yeah.
This is going over. This is the London Road over here. So it's officially, I think, called the London Road Bridge, but everyone calls it the Barking Bridge because it's the main bridge in Barking. Main bridge in and out of Barking. There's that fabulous sculpture that we talked about in the last episode. So you can see all the construction work going on there. That there is going to be called Loxford Plaza. When it's finished, there's going to be a huge food court. There'll be loads of restaurants, a gym, a place where you can gaze out over your cappuccino at the wonderful river roading.
Luxury flats.
Yes. I mean, unfortunately, it's probably going to drive the prices up even more for the local Barking people. A lot of people are moving to Barking. They've found maybe Canning Town and Plaistow and Hackney and places like that a little bit too expensive. When you get to Canning Town, you won't believe the changes there are in Canning Town. That whole sort of like Limo Peninsula is just, whoa, what's happened there?
Well, now it really is full of limos.
It's got an opera house. Anyway, so so basically this is going to be quite an interesting, fun place to go. Lots of culture. But let's carry on walking down. Okay, so we're on High Bridge Road. High Bridge because it's quite a high bridge. Just over there, crossing that road. We were here earlier, of course. We were here at the end of the last episode. Just over there is the Abbey ruins and the St Margaret's Church, and there, as you can see, we're in the quay. This is the Barking Quay. As I said in the last episode, Barking was the Barking fishing fleet was the largest in the whole country. Fishing so important to this area. And as I explained in the last episode, it was up to the abbess to clean up the rubbish, to dredge the river, make sure that it was all clean. As we said in our last episode, the river was a lifeline of Barking until it became very much neglected in recent years. Back in medieval times, there were references showing that timber would be traded here, and that dates back to 1203. But it was fish that Barking became most famous for. Between the 14th and the 19th centuries, the largest fishing boat fleet in the whole of England was based here in Barking, and it was all thanks to the river roading. Now back in 1630, believe it or not, there were some Barking fishermen who were prosecuted for using illegal nets, trawling with illegal nets in the River Thames, trawling for fish. 1630, they were prosecuted for that. So it's quite surprising that there was that kind of regulation even back then. So it was because of that, mainly, that sort of pushed the fishermen further afield with their fishing smacks. A smack is a kind of boat. But of course, so they went into the North Sea in search of fish. But of course, they had to bring back the fish, and by the time they came back, the fish was often off. It was quite a way out. So what they did is they made these, there's also a boat making area, they made these smacks which had wells on them full of salt water. So the ships themselves were actually called well smacks. In the past, of course, they used to preserve cod by drying them and preserving them with salt. But to get really fresh fish, the best way is to keep them alive. So by having these well smacks, they managed to do so. So this area became well known for having live cod, believe it or not. The very last well smack to leave Barking was in 1880. It was a 60-foot vessel called the Saucy Jack. Now, of course, having this big well full of water on your ship for days and days on end did make, it was really hard work. It was hard work to steer, hard work on the fish, etc. So another thing that they developed is they developed a sort of a relay system. So you'd get these well smacks that would go out into sort of like towards the North Sea and right up into the Atlantic towards Iceland, and sort of like they'd bring the fish back. So that meant that the fishing boat, so these boats wouldn't do any fishing. They'd just have the fish transported via these sort of baskets. That they'd bring it from one boat onto the other, and they'd quickly then bring it back, no delay, back to Barking. It meant that the fishermen could actually stay out there for much longer, and didn't have to come back to bring the fish back. Now, of course, as you can imagine, that was abused because it meant that instead of only going out for maybe a couple of weeks at a time, they were spending 3 months, sometimes 6 months at sea without seeing their loved ones. So they had a terrible work-life balance, and basically that caused a whole lot of strikes and protests and stuff, and people refusing to go out, because I mean it was just awful. So some regulation was brought in that the maximum they were expected to be away from home was 8 weeks. Now the families in charge of this whole operation since 1764 were the Hewitts. Now if you remember in the last episode when we were over there in St Margaret's Church, we saw that the Hewitts are still very much involved in the community here and very much involved with the church. The Hewitts have been around, as I said, since the 1700s. Obviously they've been around before then, but they've been in the fishing business. It was James Wennell of Barking who started the Short's Blue Fleet in 1764, but his son-in-law Scrimgeour Hewitt, I think you may have seen his name in that glass window, he started the long line of Hewitts, which lasted right up until 1980, when Robert Peter Hewitt eventually closed the business down. Now you can read all about the Hewitts on their very interesting website, shortsbluefleet.org.uk, still run by the Hewitt family. There's loads and loads of photos, and there's even some video as well. So do check that out. There's the link is in the description below. But let's carry on walking, because you can see over there, you can see some barges and some houseboats. We won't actually be allowed to go anywhere near them. That's just like a private mooring area. That's the mooring area that that Paul, the barrister, was a little bit. He just wanted to get away from and move over to start his own community over there, further upriver, where no one had been in a boat for decades. But this is the original moorings. Obviously, this is a rated moorings area. They are not off-grid. And this is the alternative lifestyle, the more traditional lifestyle. Oh, this is absolutely ridiculous. We've been going round and round in circles, trying to find our way down the river Roding, and it's actually worse than when John Rogers tried this on his video. We just can't get through, and we sort of like we end up, we've got pedestrian route and a pedestrian route going that way. There is no way through. We've been walking for ages. We lost a lot of time just trying to find a way through, but all these new builds everywhere and all these areas are being fenced off. There's just no way down. So I think we're just going to have to sort of like take the main road. We won't be able to follow the river at all, at least not this part of it. It's insane, and I just don't understand it. We've been going round and round in circles. Absolutely, there's so many dead ends here. If you were being followed, you'd be trapped. I mean, that's a dead end down there. No, I don't know. And what's all this? Why are there trolleys here? There's no supermarkets anywhere, not that I can see. I don't understand this at all. We're going to have to find another route, I think.
Follow the traffic.
That's where we came from. Here we are. These are the moorings. These are the official moorings. As you can see, it's sort of a gated community, so we can't really go in there. But it's nice, isn't it? But now we're going to have a little walk down here. So here we go, we're back. We've managed to find our way back to the River Roding, the lovely River Roding. There is the Barking and Dagenham Canoe Club over there. Fantastic. Here we see those moorings that we were talking about. These are the official moorings, of course. Here, let's take a look at that.
Salmon or fish ladder. It's a fish ladder.
For salmon? Oh, for salmon.
Well,
for fish.
The weir would cut them off.
Yes.
So the fish come up that way.
Cool.
That's nice to see.
But we're now going to be walking on the east side rather than the west side of the River Roding. That is because the west side is part of the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. It's part of Beckton. Beckton's going to have a whole series all to itself. How exciting. And then we're going to be doing a couple of detours, because there's some things to show you along the way. Yeah, so you can see here, there's another bit of river over there. That's actually the Hand Trough Creek, part of the back river. Supposedly it's part of the original, or part of the alternative route of the River Roding. Yeah, nice view. What an amazing view. Look at these lucky people.
Yeah.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? To see that every day, those beautiful This beautiful site.
Car after car.
Yeah, it's over there.
Hey, look, it's London. What do you expect?
Of course. Now we're actually going to be making one of our first of our little detours away from the river roading. We've got something of interest to show you. We've always got things of interest to show you.
Car tires and herons. Whee!
Hey? No.
The heron is over there. The car tire's there.
Where's the car tire?
Right there in the mud, right at the water line.
Oh yes.
It wouldn't be a river in England without a car tire.
No.
Actually, that's true in any part of the world where there are people and cars.
So actually just over there, sort of like past that's Alfreds Way, the A13 over there, on the right hand side, on that side of the river, that's where you get the Beckton Sewage Works, which again we'll be visiting hopefully when we get for Beckton.
Can I get a t-shirt?
You can, if they have t-shirts you can have one. Might be a bit stained. Anyway, the Beckton Sewage Works, it is a little bit smelly sometimes. We smelt it earlier on when the wind. Is that a cormorant? No.
Heron.
That's a heron. There were 60 cormorants apparently living here, or living at the creek mouth.
I believe it.
60 cormorants, the last count. Might see one later, you never know. But as I was saying, that's where the Beckton Sewage Works are. And it's an absolutely massive place. It's over 250 acres and it can apparently be seen from space. And it was originally all part of Joseph Bazalgette's 1864 waste treatment system for London. The waste and the poo of 3.5 million people go through there and then back into us. It's all treated, but things do get through occasionally. There was a bit of a polio scare recently. Some polio was found in one of the random samples they took. Don't know how that got there, but anyway, so we all thought that polio had been eradicated, didn't we? But unfortunately not. Unfortunately, we also know that after heavy rainfalls, sometimes raw sewage does make its way into the river roading and into the Thames, but it's further down there, so you only have to really worry about it when the tide comes in.
Pussycat.
Pussycat. Okay, let's make our first of our detours. That was actually a much longer detour than I was expecting. My feet are hurting. That took a lot longer. As a crow flies, it's not very far at all, but there's lots of winding around buildings and estates. Shaftesbury was really hard to work out which way to go. Anyway, so we are here on Greatfields Park, and it is here in the play area where a young Bobby Moore came to have kickabouts with his dad, Big Bob as he was known, his dad, and his uncle. They used to play here because they only lived just down there. We're going to be checking out their house in a sec, but they lived here. The big A13 wasn't in the way, so it was a lot easier to cut across. Probably only would have taken him about a couple of minutes. It's going to take us about 12 to 14 minutes to get to his house because of this massive big dual carriageway. But this is where he came with his dad and his uncle to hone his skills, and obviously his dad and his uncle were very good because even though they probably didn't have all this fancy cones and goalposts and everything, they probably just had jumpers for goalposts, as they say, but he was good enough. He got into the local school football team, and of course at the age of 16 West Ham United picked him up and he became a legend shortly thereafter. Yeah, so unfortunately you can't see his house from here. I was hoping that maybe you'd be able to see it from here. You probably would have been able to see the roof if it weren't for those trees over there. But we're gonna have a little look because, as I said, there's a blue plaque. Wow, this is a noisy old road. It wasn't like this in Bobby's day. It was probably just a little lane. But anyway, let's make our way over the traffic, and you see that thing over there, right over there in the distance? That is the mouth of the River Roding, or the Barking Creek, and Sharon later on is going to draw that. Yeah, so here we are on Waverley Gardens. We're going to go to number 44. So 44 is where Bobby Moore grew up with his mum and dad, obviously. His dad, Robert, another Robert Moore, known as Big Bob, and his mum Doris. And they grew up here, and they were still living here right up until he met Tina, his wife. That's when they moved out. But Mum and Dad were still living here when he captained England in the 1966 World Cup. I don't know why Bobby couldn't get him a ticket, after all it was only in Wembley, but Dad, Big Bob, watched the match on television here at number 44. His mum Doris was so nervous though that she stayed in the garden weeding. She couldn't watch the game. But anyway, here we are. Look at that. Number 44. In fact, and as I said, he was still living here when he got married. In fact, this address is on their marriage certificate.
Well, that is what you call battleship grey.
Yes, it is.
Well,
I bet
the vehicle, not the house.
I bet they're very proud of the fact that. So it must be amazing to live in the place that Bobby Moore lived in. Fantastic. I mean, yeah. Hello. Sorry, just. Yeah. You're so lucky, Bobby Moore. You live here.
Nice one.
Wow, you're lucky. So lucky to live here. Fantastic. They must be used to that. That was very lucky, wasn't he?
Look at the size of that sunflower. I love this. I want one. I've always wanted to grow one of those giant ones.
Or grab some seeds on the floor there.
I don't want to take something that isn't mine.
We're at the Lyon Business Park. Units number 2 and number 3 are Hunter's Biltong, so it's just about to close. It's just coming up to 4 o'clock. We're just going to hopefully get in there to try some biltong. They make it themselves, and looking forward to some of that. Maybe have it at cost price, as it were, factory prices, without the retailers. Let's go and check it out. You're looking forward to having some biltong?
When we visited Hunter's Shop and Butchery, they were about to close, and in the panic I forgot to turn on my microphone, hence this voiceover. But what a pleasant surprise. Not only could you buy freshly prepared stockies of biltong and droewors at wholesale prices, but you can also buy no end of other South African delicacies. I was, however, disappointed that it was only beef, and that there was no ostrich, kudu or wildebeest biltong on offer. But hey, this is after all Barking, not Bloemfontein, so I guess if you want it fresh, then beef is the way to go.
Okay, let's carry on walking down. Now this is River Road. There's quite a few things to look at in River Road.
It tastes good.
River Road, guess where it's leading to? The river.
It smells a little bit like Beckton.
Yeah, it does smell a little bit like Beckton. The wind's coming from over there, so the smell of the sewage plant is coming over. This is the Wharf Studios. This is brand new. It opened this year. The Wharf Studios, big film studio complex. As you can see, S1, S2, S3, S4, S5. There may even be a 6 or a 7 down there, I don't know. This is brand new. Don't know if there's been any major productions here yet, but I'm sure there will be very soon. The Wharf Studios. Didn't even know this existed. Last time we came down here, this was not here. This was some kind of steel factory or something. I can't remember now. Anyway, let's carry on walking down River Road. There's something very interesting to show you. Blumsom Timber Centre won't actually be open today, I don't think, but we'll be able to look through the gates. And it's an interesting place. Now the Blumsom, they've been around, they're a family business, they've been around since 1898, I believe it was, and it's still, the Blumsoms are still involved in the running. I think their sales manager is Frederick Blumsom, and they are the last surviving London importers of hard timber. 5 generations, as I said, of Blumsoms have been running this company, and they sell everything. Hardwoods like maple and oak, and softwoods like Douglas fir and cedar. Unfortunately, they're closed on Saturdays, but Sharon carves things out of cedar, so we're hoping that by giving them a little free plug, if they have any old bits that they can't use for making their laminate flooring and whatnot, they might throw some our way. Well, not literally throw, but you know. Now, what I want to show you here is this. Check this out. Look at this.
There you go. 1896.
Blumsom fine timber.
Oh, wow.
Interesting story to this train. It never actually worked for the Blumsoms. That's just an advertising for them. It's actually from Finland. In fact, these trains are nicknamed in Finnish kana, which is Finnish for hen. That's its Finnish nickname. And the weird thing is that the gauge is actually for Russian tracks. And it obviously didn't come here by rail. Now we have got a lot of train enthusiasts in the group, so I'll just let you know that this is a VR Class 1 VR1 number 794, and it was built between 1913 and 1927. So what's it doing here? Well, basically Finland had a lot of these trains left over just in case they were going to be invaded by Russia. At the end of the Cold War, they realised, hopefully not prematurely, that they were not going to need them anymore. They wanted to have them for possibly, you know, transporting fuel and stuff like that in the case of emergency. They didn't need them anymore, and rather than scrap them, they sold them. And the story goes, I don't know how true this is, but the story goes that there was a guy in Cornwall who wanted to open a Wild West theme park, and so he bought this and a load of other Finnish trains. And then whatever happened, I don't know, recession, or I don't know exactly what happened, but the theme park never materialised. So this train, I think it ended up in Ongar for a while, and then it ended up here. The Blumsoms bought it as an advertising feature, and it's actually become a bit of a landmark. People remember, because they come down here and they look, what on earth is that train doing there? Very good advertising for them, very clever. I'm sure that if you've got any questions about it, I'm sure that Frederick Blumsom would be only too happy to get in touch with you. If you've got any spare wood that you want, that you don't want, like the offcuts of red cedar or cedar in general, just please get in touch with us. hello@loveyourlondon.com. We'd be more than happy to take them off your hands. We wouldn't even have to take them very far, because we've got a storage unit just down there. We've got a storage unit just around the corner.
This is not the storage unit.
This is not our storage unit. But on this road, we've got a storage unit at Bullmans Marine. They've been very good to us. We've been very good to them, of course, because we've had our storage there for a long time. We're going to be passing it. Unfortunately, it's closed on weekends, but it'll be nice to wave at our storage unit as we go past. Hopefully our stuff is still nice and secure inside. We haven't been there for a few years. This is Creekmouth open space. Okay, it's starting to rain. The problem is, this is now where Sharon is going to draw her work of art. She's not going to be able to do it in the rain, so we might have to photograph it, and she does it at home, which well maybe the rain will. Oh, that smell is bad. Oh, that smell is bad. It's coming across from the Beckton Sewage Works. Oh, I remember that. I used to live 15 odd years ago on the other side of Beckton, and when the wind changed, here it comes. Look at that. The fabulous and majestic flood defence system. As I've said, this final part of the river roading is known as Barking Creek. I'm not sure exactly why the Battle of Barking Creek is called that. The Battle of Barking Creek was the first time that British fighter pilots were shot down in friendly fire, as it happened, in 1939. The aircraft left North Weald Airfield in Essex, and the incident happened over Sussex. So I'm not actually sure where Barking Creek comes into it in the Battle of Barking Creek. Again, please say so in the comments if you know the answer. But this here is very, very special. This is a tidal flood barrier. It's 38 metres wide. The towers are 40 metres tall. As I'm sure you're well aware, London has its Thames barrier between Silvertown to the north and New Charlton to the south. But that's not much good to the people of Barking. So in 1983, 1 year after the Thames barrier became operational, so did this. It normally gets closed just before the Thames barrier closes, and it opens just after the Thames barrier opens. So hopefully there won't be a repeat of the devastating North Sea flood of 1953, which ruined
Yeah, as you've probably fathomed out from the crackling of the microphone, torrential rain and wireless audio equipment do not work well together, so it's time for another voiceover. I was referring to the devastating North Sea flood of 1953, which not only ruined parts of Barking, but also very sadly completely destroyed the tiny village of Creekmouth, which had to be pulled down. On your screen you will see some photos which the Creekmouth Preservation Society gave me permission to use. It was a tiny but very isolated village made up of just 2 rows of houses, a church and a pub called the Crooked Billet, which fortunately escaped the flood as it had moved location in 1925. It was all very sad. Most of the people worked for the Law's Chemical Company Works and the Barking Guano Works, which brought seabird droppings, or guano, from 2 islands off the south coast of Africa to be used as fertiliser. This is a pretty good photo of the village here, taken from above, which we have permission also to share with you, taken in 1931. Now, if you come here in the springtime, you'll find loads of flowers, and it's quite beautiful. And that is thanks to Billy Bragg, who, together with local children from the Thames Phew Junior School, planted 500 wildflower bulbs here. Remember Billy Bragg? We spoke quite a lot about him in the last episode. And you haven't heard the end of Bragg yet. This has become a lovely little place to relax, as long as the wind is not in the wrong direction, wrong as in coming from Beckton. Now, one of the ways that this channel tries to make a little bit of extra money is through Sharon's drawings. Normally she draws in situ, but because of the inclement weather, her sketch of the beloved Barking Creek barrier had to be finished off at home. We wanted to immortalise this symbol of Barking, of defiance, of protection, a thing of beauty, I'm sure you'll admit. This will be on sale on eBay at the ridiculously cheap starting price of £20, and the link will be in the description below and should run for about 10 days after this video goes live. Hopefully it will go for a lot more than that, but right now times are so tough that even if it only goes for £20, that would have paid for our transport costs to be able to make this video for you. And then the rain stopped, our equipment dried out, a beautiful rainbow appeared across the firmament, and slowly but surely the microphone began to spring back into life. So, as you just saw there, Sharon had to finish off the drawing at home, well, it's on eBay now for the next few days. This is available. There's going to be a link in the description and on our website, of course, www.loveyourlondon.com. Please do bid for it, because it's another way of us making a little bit of money to help pay for our expenses, our travel expenses, our beer expenses as well. Look at that lovely rainbow. Fantastic. Anyway, now we're just going to go down here because it's a very interesting mural that we can't wait to show you, and it tells of a very tragic story that happened just down there in the river creek. Right, so at the end of this rainbow, at the end of this path on the right, there's this very interesting mural to show you. The SS Alice. It's a tragedy. The SS Princess Alice mural, steamship. Look at this. It is, and it's been damaged.
Yeah, it looks like a vehicle.
It looks like a vehicle, yeah, that's vehicle height. It's a mosaic. Hopefully they'll be able to fix that.
Well, not with any ease. Well, someone will have to come and...
So as you can see, Creekmouth Village, the Crooked Billet, the Crooked Billet there, the pub, which fortunately was saved. There's Law's, that's a chemical factory I was telling you about. Okay, so now what's all this about? I think you can probably get from the idea what happened. A paddle steamer called the SS Princess Alice in 1878 collided with a collier called Bywell Castle. Between 650 and 700 lives were lost, and it is to this day the greatest ever loss of life of any inland shipping disaster. It's also London's worst peacetime disaster and London's worst transport disaster, so there's a lot of worsts there. Now you'll see on your screen there it says moonlight trip to Rocherville and back, fare 2 shillings. Basically, the SS Princess Alice was making a moonlight trip from London Bridge to Gravesend. The collier ship didn't see it in time, tried to reverse, but it hit the Princess Alice, splitting it in half. It only took 4 minutes to sink. A lot on board couldn't swim, and even if they could, they would have found it very difficult against the tide. But to make matters worse, just 1 hour before, 75 million gallons of raw sewage, that's 340,000 cubic metres, had poured out from the outfalls, which happened twice a day. Reports suggest that most deaths were caused by severe vomiting and then dehydration after swallowing all of the sewage. There were only about 200 very sick survivors. There were bloated bodies being pulled out for days, and all of these were being watched by the children of Creekmouth village. It was pretty horrendous. Now there was a book about it. It's called Field of Dust, written by Angela Jean Young, whose great aunt Florence Gant was one of the children who witnessed all this happening.
Now, you can, of course, buy Field of Dust via our Amazon affiliate link. The recommended retail price is $8.99, but it is currently for sale at $7.99. I assume the characters at either side of this mural are belching out raw sewage. Such a horrific image. Of course, sadly, something similar happened in 1989. Remember the Marchioness disaster, where 51 people died that night. But it was the SS Princess Alice tragedy, however, that made the Metropolitan Board of Works realise that the sewage needed to be treated, and any other type of sewage and effluents was to be dumped instead out into the North Sea, far away from civilization, a practice that lasted 111 years until 1998, when the last sludge boat set off to dump into the North Sea. I remember those boats heading off down the Thames quite clearly. It probably sounds unbelievable that such a practice went on for so long, but there you go. Oh, and in case you're wondering, 4 years later, the Bywell Castle, which of course survived the collision, ended up in another tragedy, shipwrecked in a gale in the Bay of Biscay, on a journey bringing Egyptian cottonseed and beans from Alexandria in Egypt to Hull. All 40 crew members died. I wonder how many of them were also on board when this tragedy happened. Quite a few, I should imagine.
Okay, so we're now outside the Restaurant River. This is what used to be the Crooked Billet. As I said, the Crooked Billet was used to be over there in the 1920s, and it was moved fortuitously here to this location. And so when that awful flood happened in Creekmouth, this did not get damaged. Now we're going to go inside in a minute, but you're not going to see that in this episode, because we've just recently filmed an episode about Romanian life in London. There is going to be a link in the corner at the end of this video where you can watch that video in case you haven't seen it before. It's where we go to some interesting restaurants, one in Burnt Oak. We also go to a football match between FC Romania and Faversham Town. Do check it out. But so we're not going to be showing you this here. This is like a teaser. You'll have to check out the other video. Here we are, we're outside Bullman's self-storage. Unfortunately it's not open on weekends, but this is where my life is. Since 2009 I've been keeping my stuff in storage. Really recommend them. Great guys. Bullmans, only £130 a month, and that includes VAT, and yeah, they're great. So do check them out. They've looked after our stuff. As far as we know, we haven't actually been here for a few years. Yes, obviously that's £1,560 a year. Probably there's only about £1,000's worth of stuff in there, but it doesn't matter because it's a sentimental value, and that's priceless. Hopefully one day, if our channel picks up, we'll be able to maybe afford a 2-bedroom place and move our stuff out of here. Yeah, so there you go. That's our container just there behind. You can't really see it. That's where it all is. And look at this place. It's really picking up. When we moved our stuff here, there was, in fact, last time I came here, which was about 3 years ago or so, there was no station there. That's the Barking Riverside. This place is all getting very exciting. This is Barcelona-on-Thames, as they call it, as they're dubbing it in the press. Fantastic. So, and they're really regenerating this area. So let's now let's go and check out the new station, Barking Riverside. It's the newest station on the whole London system. Just over there, just over there, we have the location of what used to be the Dagenham Sunday Market. It's not actually Dagenham here, so it's a bit of a strange name for it, but there you go. Dagenham Sunday Market used to be fantastic for all those sort of clothes bargains. People used to come here, but they had to move. They've closed down. Apparently it was because of the pandemic. So there used to be 600 stalls here, believe it or not, and it used to get, on a Sunday, 15,000 visitors a day. And also it was a place to come if you love to get giant artificial flowers. Fantastic. So let's check out Barking Riverside. There we go.
Brand spanking new.
Brand new. This was opened not long ago at all, in June. Yeah, so here we are at Barking Riverside Station, London's newest station. It's very exciting. I've never used it. It opened on the 18th of July 2022, right in the middle of that heat wave, when temperatures went over the 40-degree mark for the very first time. So in fact, on the day that it opened, they recommended, they asked people, look, I know this is a brand new station, it's very exciting, but do you mind actually not coming, because this is really, really unavoidable, just because it was just so overcrowded, and they're worrying about heat and it breaking down, basically, because this country is not really prepared for hot weather like other countries. It's not really prepared for very cold weather either.
Yeah, the tracks are buckling.
Yes, they really were in trouble when the heat wave happened. Anyway, so it opened to not grand fanfare, unfortunately. It should have received more, but because of the heat wave it didn't. So just the one line goes from here. It's the overground, as you can see on your screen. Trains, it's a terminus. The terminus used to be Barking, but now the trains to Gospel Oak leave from here, so Barking is no longer the terminus for the London Overground. So the next stop is Barking, and it's in Zone 4, and wait for it, it is fully accessible. And they have toilets, and they're fully accessible as well. Now, although I said that it only has the one line, there is an interchange with the Barking Riverside Pier. This is on the ferry. And the ferry, the last ferry gets here from central London just after midnight, I believe. But there are regular ferries that leave here and arrive here, go to Westminster and Canary Wharf and London Bridge and everything. And they go quite regularly. On the weekends, they're very regular. During the weekdays, I believe they sort of only are in the morning and in the evenings, so there's sort of like, I think there's a period during the daytime where it's not running. That's probably going to change, I imagine. But if you are a wheelchair user, please don't forget that there are three stations, three ferry stations that are not accessible. They are, and I'm just going to check my notes because I never remember this. They are Wandsworth Riverside, Cadogan West and London Bridge. So if you are getting a ferry from here on your wheelchair, you'll have no problems at all, but if your destination is one of those three stations, you will not be able to get off. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, let's just have a very quick look at this beautiful station. This is interesting. We have here cycle parking. Look at this. This is fantastic. Turnstiles and everything. It reminds me of the Netherlands and places like that, where they have sort of proper infrastructure for cyclists. Anyway, let's go to the ferry. Oh, isn't that lovely? He's let us in for free because we're going to be taking the ferry back, but he's let us in for free just to film, because we're YouTubers. That's really nice of him. We're not going to be here for very long. That is good customer service, by the way. Really good customer service and initiative on behalf of the young man. He just realised that we were just here to take some pictures and let us in. Thank you, young man.
I'll say we'll get his name when we get.
Yeah.
So this is, you said quite literally, the newest.
Yes, it's the newest. Yep.
I like the ceiling.
Yeah. So as you can see, trains on either side.
It's very continental, isn't it?
Very continental. Just needs the ashtrays. The ashtrays would make it more.
It's the size of the platform.
Yes.
This just reminds me.
If it had ashtrays, it would be more continental. But Yeah, very clean.
Where are the arm-sized rats?
No arm-sized rats here.
Not anymore.
It's beautiful. It's a shame that we can't see the new development that is happening. They're starting to build Barcelona-on-Thames. There's already a big school there called the campus, I think. Oh, I'm out of breath after those stairs.
Nice
Yeah?
bright marquee, easy to see.
Very nice, very clear to see. Very impressed. This is how you do a new station.
Nice and easy.
Nice.
Good, well lit.
Yep. Barking Riverside Pier, here we come. Yes, so as you can see from this brand spanking new, very clearly laid out sign, our westbound ferry is in 8 minutes time. It's going to cost £4.80. And let me just see, I believe, yep, £4.80. But if we were only just going to cross the river going to Woolwich, that would be £3.80, which is fair enough. Well, of course, it's free if you use the Woolwich free ferry. There you go. That's a new Barcelona-on-Thames, the Barking Riverside complex. It's huge. I mean, just look at these photos here. You can't see it because it's so dark. Yeah, I'm just looking at this map here that you've got on screen. Over there you've got, it's all done in sort of like areas, and so they've sort of started work there. That's called the district centre. Over there you've got stage 2 south in Northgate, the viaduct. Here's a new station, which is absolutely beautiful. Rivergate. Over there, that's all going to be brand new. That's the King's Wharf over there. That looks lots of interesting buildings there, and Rivergate all over there. Going to completely revitalise this area. Quite exciting. I mean, I'm not, as you know, normally a fan of regeneration, but I think sometimes areas are a bit run down.
Well, this was
and they need
ex-industrial / brownfield, etc.
And it's going to be so close to our
new depot.
It's going to be really close to our storage containers. Our storage containers are going to be basically right in the middle of the new development.
Excellent.
King's Wharf development, and our storage containers, I guess, are going to be in the middle. I hope they're not going to make us move them again. Yeah. Let me look at that picture again. Yeah, because our storage unit would be just there. That's where we are now, the pier. Just there. I hope that little gap there is our storage unit. I hope. If they make us move. No. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. And anyway, this is an architectural drawing. Bullmans will put up a fight. They'll put up a fight. They'll put up a fight. Won't you? If you're watching this, Bullmans, if they try and suggest that you've got to move, that we've got to move our stuff, please don't do that to us. Please. It would kill me. Please. Please.
time on Love Your London, we go to Upney to visit the wonderful 16th century Eastbury Manor House, which is absolutely stunning. We take a walk through Rippleside Cemetery. We tell you all about Maysbrook Park, the Roundhouse, plus we visit the home of Barking FC, tell you all about a historical wrong that was recently finally acknowledged by the FA, and there's more musical connections too, from the Tremolos to Stereolab, Vera Lynn, and of course Billy Bragg. Plus we get to ride on a magical unicorn. Till next time.
From Acton Town to Wimbledon, from Brixton to beyond, love your London, have a banana.